Alright, so I'm often asked how I do my SFM animations, and I've always been reluctant to answer because I'm not a great teacher, and there's also not really a technique that I stick to or a process. I just kind of go with what I know and what works best for me in the moment. Like, I have gone through so many different techniques while I've gone on my SFM journey, but nonetheless, I will give the best tutorial I can give. Alright, so for this video, I'm going to reanimate the sawmill video I just uploaded. It's a pretty simple animation, so I think I can get the point across with it.
Down at the mountaintops, baby, sawmill, 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 sawmill.
Now, the first thing I always do when I do an animation is I make a keyframe for each pose in the sequence, like so. Now, obviously, his fist is not supposed to move like this, so I need to change this a little bit. Alright, now, I'm sure all of y'all have heard how SFM is. I often stick to linear tangents when I start working on my animation after the keyframes, but SFM loves to fuck with you and just make everything spline anyways, and end up with something like this. Hello, DarthPugz here. I am very tired and very pale. It's very early in the morning. I want to give a quick explanation of why that happened. So I often use spline tangents. It's basically it creates basically this look. Now on the graph editor, I'll explain more of this later, but that basically, it automatically will smooth out the curve from each point rather than being more of a harsh angle like with linear tangents. Again, I'll explain more of that later. Now, the reason the elbow was jumping like that and going back up is because for some reason, when you put just another marker like that, or maybe you move it together, SFM gets confused like on what you're trying to do. Like the curves will just f up, so the curve ends up going basically like this, like that, like a W basically. So the curve is thinking, oh, so you want the arm to bounce like this and go back up. I'm like, no, I want the arm to sink, then go back up, not bounce. It's really annoying, but it's a pretty simple fix. You can either just throw another linear tangent or a spline tangent or whatever you want to do. And that's another thing I want to throw out there. People often ask me, oh, what tangents do you use? Use all of them. Experiment with them. Use as many as you can. Figure out what works. Because if you just stick to one of them, you're going to have a pretty disgusting, well, distinctive but gross style. If you stick to linear tangents, you get a very robotic, bland animation that looks very unfinished. But with spline tangents, if you just stick to that, you get a very floaty, weightless animation. Basically, let's imagine I'm waving again, just like this. Hi. If I just use linear tangents, it'd be like. Now, if I use spline tangents, it'd be like. Like, you don't want to do that. Just experiment more and more with different tangents and you'll find what works for you and what works best for what you're trying to create. Let's say you're working with a walking animation. If you animate your feet, you don't want spline tangents on your feet, because if you do that, your feet are going to sink through the floor. So you use linear tangents for the feet, but you want to use spline tangents for the arms, because your arms aren't just gonna, jerk like that. But that's what I'm saying, you gotta think about these things. Do not make a habit out of just selecting all your tangents and going spline, because then you will things up. I cannot tell you how many animators I see daily that just stick to spline tangents and call it a day. I hate it so much, it's the worst habit ever. Do not do that, please. Alright, so I fixed the timing and used linear tangents to create the movement, and now I'm gonna work on some of the details. So at this point, I often work on making things more weighted, because obviously your arm isn't gonna move like this like some sort of robot. It needs to have more of a recoil and a reaction, if you know what I mean. Real life DarthPugz again, very pale, it's very early, you get the idea. I need to explain real quick what like a parent and child bone is. Let's take my whole left arm for example. Right here is the parent to all these bones, my left elbow. And this, my left forearm, is the parent to the lower arm and the hand, and so on. Each subsequent bone being the children. So my hand, my lower arm, and my forearm are the children to my elbow. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take each child of each subsequent bone and move its frame slightly to the right on the graph editor, so it has more of a weighted movement. So instead of being like this robotic animation, it'll be more like a weighted, recoiled kind of more realistic look. So like I said, I'm going to select all the arm bones excluding the elbows, and I'm going to move their frames slightly to the right. Make sure to click this button right here so you can place your markers more accurately. Just remember to deselect later. Also, quick pro tip, if you use the brackets, you can snap your playhead to each marker. I'm going to select all of these, and I'm going to move it just a smidge to the right. And then I'll take the other two parents and deselect them, move these more to the right, and then take these here and move them even more to the right. And now, there you go. You have a nicer looking animation. Now, if you really want to get detailed, I do this a lot. I like to take an animation like this and have the, let's say, the hand kind of flop a little bit. Oops, that's not the hand. Like that. Whoosh, you know? That way it looks more weighted. It looks better. Also, again, with it, the linear shit. Now, this is a good opportunity to use spline tangents to have it be more smooth. But yeah, you see it. We probably want to make that a little earlier, actually. Yeah, in motion looks great, right? I mean, slow-mo, it looks weird. His arm just kind of... But in motion looks pretty good. Now, you can do the same with spine as well if you wanted to. I won't get too detailed. I'll just take these here. Now, with the head and the neck, I often play it by ear. I'll just kind of play the animation and stop and then move the neck back and just kind of play around with it until it looks good. Probably not the most professional method, but hey, look, the results speak for themselves. So, since you can spline the curves together, if you literally just like stick a marker right here and not even move anything, but set it to spline, it will have the head just like smooth in like that. See that? Now, another trick that I often use, and a lot of SFMers use, is the smooth tool. Just go to the motion editor and slide the smooth tool slightly. Use it very sparingly though. Do not go too far. If you use it too much, you can end up ruining your work. And there we go. It's complete. Just one big old fist bump. DarthPugz here for one last time. I just want to give you a little bit of a rundown on how the graph editor works. It's very simple. There's an XYZ coordinate that you're basically inputting. That's what the green, blue, and red lines represent. And you're basically just, the line is where each point is, like in the XYZ coordinates. So like right here is what it'd look like if it was with linear tangents. It's basically the curve is going from one point to another. Like, where you tell it to go, it will go exactly to that point, to the next one. Thus the phrase linear tangents. Now, with spline tangents, it will automatically have each curve ease into the next marker that you set, like the next point that you set there. And that's what it will end up looking like, the spline tangents right there. You can see it right here. Now, for whatever reason, I don't know why this happens. I have yet to figure it out. If SFM will just fuck with your tangents sometimes, and then you end up with something like that, and that will end up basically looking like and then there's like this that I've seen before. I just want the animation to do this, but it'll be more like huh? All that aside, I hope that I could help y'all get better at SFM. If you want more tutorials, just leave a comment below and I'll sure to get to it as fast as I can. In the meantime, I hope y'all are ready for how it feels to play TF2 in 2021. I am so excited to get that going, so get it hype, y'all.